I started Mandarin lessons in 2011. Nobody told me to. I just already had a thesis about China, and I wanted to be ready when it played out. My father used to come back from China in the early 90s, carrying stories and, of all things, echography machine catalogs. Italy was just beginning to look east. He was importing medical imaging equipment, flying into a country that was barely cracking open its doors to the world. I was a kid, and I remember those catalogs. I remember later playing with the machines at his office, not fully understanding what any of it meant, but feeling like something big was happening somewhere far away. That was intuition. Fast forward to today. The visa, the language, the flights, those things matter, don't get me wrong. But here's what I've learned after years of living and working across Asia. First, actually in the UK, with British and Chinese clients and partners. Then relocating to Shanghai as the only foreigner among 300 employees. The professionals who truly succeed don't just navigate logistics, they understand culture. Not in theory, but in practice in real time and under pressure. So today, I want to give you 3 practical concepts I come back to constantly, in my own work and in conversations with guests on my podcast. You can start using these deliberately, whatever your level of seniority. Let's get into it. Cultural awareness. Cultural awareness is the recognition and understanding of the differences between your own culture and the culture of others. Simple definition, but deep implications. Most of us move through professional life with our own cultural lens, so firmly in place that we don't even notice it's there. We assume the way we communicate, the way we run a meeting, the way we give feedback is just normal, universal, the default option. We only realize it's cultural when something goes wrong. Story time. A European manager joins a team in Shanghai. The team is polite, attentive, always nodding in meetings. He feels good about the dynamic. Then, weeks in, he starts to notice something unsettling. Nobody is telling him when something isn't working. Problems aren't being raised. Disagreements are not being voiced. He interprets this as passivity, or worse, as people hiding things from him. But something else is happening. In many Chinese professional environments, openly disagreeing with a manager doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it risks causing embarrassment for everyone in the room. The team isn't being passive, they're being professional, in the way their cultural context has taught them to be. I lived a version of this myself. When I moved to Shanghai in 2018, I sat in team meetings where the VP of sales, a very tough Shanghainese woman, will speak non-stop, often aggressively, and everyone will simply look down. No engagement, no pushback, even when I knew personally that people in that room disagreed with what was being said. That was my first real lesson in cultural awareness. It's the moment you stop assuming your version of normal is universal, and you start asking, what does this situation look like from the other side? Cultural awareness is the entry point to everything else. You cannot develop cultural intelligence, you cannot communicate effectively across cultures if you can't first see that a gap exists. If there is one concept you take from this video, write this one down. Cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence is the ability to function effectively across a variety of cultural contexts. If cultural awareness is about seeing the difference, cultural intelligence is about doing something useful with that knowledge. And this is where most people get stuck. They either ignore the cultural difference entirely, low awareness, low adaptation, or they overcorrect and become so cautious, so anxious about offending someone that they can't function naturally at all. Cultural intelligence is the middle path. It's grounded, flexible, and practical. Let me give you a concrete example from Japan. A senior European sales director was managing a key client relationship in Tokyo. It spent most of his career with clients in the US and Germany, so direct feedback and clear timelines. He was good at his job. In Japan, his client was warm, extremely polite, and always available for a meeting, but never seemed to commit to anything. No yes and no, just courtesy. His first instinct was to push harder. More calls, more follow-up emails, more proposals. The relationship started to feel strained. The more culturally intelligent move, which he eventually found with some help, was to change his timeline expectations entirely. In Japanese business culture, decisions are often made by internal consensus before they're ever communicated externally. The silence was the process happening, just out of view. His job wasn't to push, it was to be present, patient, and consistent. He adapted, he didn't change who he was, he changed how he operated in that specific context. This is cultural intelligence. And I'll be honest, it's easier said than done. Look, I'm Italian, my first clients back in the day were American, then I moved to the UK and started working extensively with British and Chinese counterparts, then I moved to Shanghai, where my mornings are with Asian colleagues and partners and the afternoons are with French, British and Italian people. Non-stop context switching every single day. Do I use the same approach with everyone? Absolutely not. Cross-cultural communication. Cross-cultural communication is the exchange of information, ideas, and attitudes across cultural boundaries. You can have a strong cultural awareness, you can have real good cultural intelligence, but then if you can't communicate effectively across the boundary in a meeting, in an email, in a negotiation, none of it converts into results. It's like being excellent in theory but struggling in practice. Language is often the smaller part of the problem. The bigger issues are things like what's left unsaid and whether you're trained to hear it, how disagreement is expressed. Is it directly expressed or indirectly? Who speaks first and what the signals about hierarchy? What silence actually means? Agreement, respect, discomfort, or refusal? Here's an example from Vietnam. A European HR director was running performance reviews with her team in Ho Chi Minh City. She designed the process around the same format she used in Amsterdam: open dialogue, two-way feedback, encouragement to voice concerns. In her words, a conversation, not a judgment. Her Vietnamese team members were polite, brief, and consistently positive about everything. She left every session feeling that the process had been very shallow, like she was getting the surface, not the substance. What she hadn't accounted for was the cultural weight of the format itself. In a context where hierarchy is deeply respected, the performance review structure was already sending the wrong signal, regardless of how she framed it. The format itself said, "This is a formal evaluation," and that changed everything. When she shifted to smaller, more informal one-to-one check-ins without the explicit performance review framing, things changed for the better. People opened up, trust grew, and she finally understood what was actually happening inside her team. She hadn't changed her intention, she changed her communication structure to fit the cultural context. This is cross-cultural communication in practice. These three concepts don't operate in isolation, they build on each other. You cannot communicate well across cultures if you have no awareness of the cultural gap. You cannot adapt intelligently if you haven't developed the flexibility to adjust your approach. And you cannot translate any of it into real outcomes without putting the communication itself at the center. This is what I mean when I say Asia is not a geography problem, it's a cultural problem. And the good news is that this is not a talent you either have or you don't. It is a skill. It is built through experience, through reflection, and through learning to name what you are actually observing. That's exactly what this channel is here to help you do.